Will and Tarzana here, part of the Blasting News editorial. Kind of right stuck here in the middle. Give you the lay of the land. Out yonder that way is Ventura. And well, there's no point walking over there, there's a bunch of trees. But due east is where this other one's breaking out. That's looking due north, San Fernando Valley. But I mean, you can see part of the problem. I'll start over here. The lighting's not good. See up there? That's a 120-foot tall, totally dead eucalyptus. I'm surrounded by negligence around here. The LA brush clearance, the LA City Fire Department, got to do a better job. I mean, when you got like, what are those, 80-foot tall, dead and dying pine trees. Won't mention any names. But as you can kind of tell, wherever you may be watching this, it's first week of December. And the trees are just starting to lose their leaves. That's how messed up the weather is around here. The trees have started to think that only now is it September. You know, this is where I would agree with big government, left of center policies. But people got to take better personal accountability and responsibility. And then you won't ever need to be bailed out by the government. It applies to anything to welfare, to this sort of a potential situation. It's different to people who have taken care of their land or victimized from afar with flying embers. You can really see the lighting, right? That one. Right here. You know, if an ember gets caught up in those, it's not going to take long to flare up. Then you got a giant Roman candle blowtorch. So I don't criticize LAFD. They got a lot of problems on their hands. It's just one enclave of about 1,000 just in this part of the San Fernando Valley. So here's hoping our little slice of heavenly greenscape remains.
Significant wildfires every month of the year, but typically during the winter time, not this large. Usually it's October. October is the month that we see the deadliest and largest wildfires here in California. However, the National Weather Service, they keep track of fuel moisture, a very important component when assessing fire risk. They determine how much moisture is in the chaparral, the grasses, the wildland. And they said that the values, at least in this portion of Ventura County, were down into the single digits. Very little precipitation here, only a few hundredths of an inch back on November 16th. This fuel is tinder dry, and even though we had a relatively wet winter in Southern California last winter, this area, this is the one small area, Steve and Megan, that is not officially out of the drought. Portions of Santa Barbara County and Ventura County, despite those storms, remained in drought conditions. All of that, combined with a trigger and these fierce Santa Ana winds, allowed this fire to spread.
You can see the gusts blowing. That sky filled with smoke behind me. That's where most of the homes have been destroyed. But as if you look to the left, you can see clear blue skies going back out towards the ocean. So this fire is still very much out of control. We're going to be talking with John Bravo, who's nice enough to join us after a long sleepless night, I presume. You're up in the area that was evacuated?
Yes, I was, but I left after 9:30, just as the orders were coming in.
Yeah.
And I spent the night with my roommate at his sister's house in Oxnard.
So you've lived here almost 50 years, you said. Ever gone through anything even close to this?
Yes, there has been numerous fires about in 1985. If you could just turn around and see right there, the hill.
Yeah.
That hill went up in smoke in October of '85, and that was one of the big fires that we experienced back then at this time of the year.
So what's your sort of mindset right now? It's still very, very uncertain what the next several hours will bring.
Well, my main concern right now is, other than my house, I had to leave my cat behind, and that's what I'm concerned about, to see if my cat was okay. So hopefully when the time comes and they let us in, I'll go in and check and see if she's okay. So.
All right, well, John, good luck. Thanks for talking to us.
You're welcome.
Hang in there.
Thank you.
That kind of story is something we've been hearing over and over again. You know, people concerned about their pets, not knowing if their houses are going to be there when they get back. Again, we're in Santa Paula at the base of the foothills. The streets are closed, power's out for much of this area, tens of thousands of people evacuated, and just not knowing, you know, what's going to happen throughout this day. Steve?
Phil Shuman, okay, we'll get back to you, Phil, as we continue our coverage. That fire that Phil is covering, that fire you're looking at right now, 47,000 acres, and in fact, we don't know how many homes have been destroyed. We're saying in the hundreds, but we'll get an update on that as we go along. We're covering that fire and
the Creek Fire, which is approximately 4,000 acres, you know, that are under fire. And look at these images that you see here. Pretty dramatic.
What's it looking like?
This is the Creek Fire. Again, it's the eastern flank of the Creek Fire, and we have a little bit of good news in that we did see a couple of tankers make some of those FOS check drops, and we saw a couple of water-dropping helicopters as well. And there's one right there coming into frame, but they are really struggling with the wind, and they're only able to battle this fire on certain flanks because of that wind. They're doing the best they can. Many of the aircraft remain grounded, and because of this fire, the Creek Fire, and all the smoke that is lofting in a southwesterly direction, the visibility is down, and as Maria just said, and I reported earlier, the smoke advisory was issued by the South Coast Air Quality Management District. The visibility is down to just a mile at Van Nuys Airport. That is how thick this smoke is. All right, let's first speak to the 210, the Foothill Freeway closure. It is shut down for miles now between the two and the split with the 5. The 5 freeway would be your alternate. You got to take that well to the south, through Burbank, down towards Glendale, connect with the 134, and then you can take the 134 east, and you can pick up the 210 because it'll eventually merge with the 210 towards Eagle Rock and Pasadena. That 5 freeway closure, that's a tough one because that is the only freeway that makes its way through the Santa Clarita Valley, through Valencia, up towards Castaic, down towards the Newhall Pass. You're going to have to exit and use surface streets. The old road, that may be impacted as well through that portion of the San Fernando Valley. All we're hearing right now is the 5, but that is an alternate to make your way south out of the Santa Clarita Valley towards the north end of the San Fernando Valley. That is because of the 3rd wildfire that is burning up in that area. We'll widen out here and let me show you all of that smoke, again, that's lofting, being driven by northeasterly winds coming out of these San Gabriel Mountains, out of the Antelope Valley, the Mojave Desert, due to very strong high atmospheric pressure, because of high winds aloft, because of sinking air, because of thermal cold air support. All of that is accelerating these winds from the northeast towards the southwest, and that smoke plume is essentially shrouding the majority of the San Fernando Valley. Only the portion of the valley that we're over, the far eastern portion, near the 5 freeway and the Verdugo Mountains, is clear. Everywhere else has poor visibility, horrible air quality. Ash is raining down as we watch this one helicopter attempt a water drop. Such challenging conditions up there for these pilots because, again, wildfires, they're terrain driven as well, and those winds are being impacted by the terrain. And you can see the fire here on the eastern flank actually charging back uphill against wind. Despite the fact that the wind's blowing it in the opposite direction, it still has that energy to make its way uphill. In fact, in average conditions, fire will move uphill over 2 times quicker than it does downhill. And that's what we're seeing here. All that vegetation indigenous to Southern California, the San Gabriel Mountains, that's what lights up and creates the real black, thick smoke. It's those oils and the yucca plants and the chaparral that is indigenous to our area here. Some grasses there. Moderate to heavy vegetation here that has been dried out by years of drought. And again, even though we did receive some precipitation down here in Southern California, some good storms, and many areas did end up a bit above average. It wasn't like the moisture that they received up in the northern half of the state. And this autumn has been exceptionally dry. We have those La Nina conditions in effect, and right now that's driving this weather pattern, this persistent area of high pressure, keeping the jet stream to our north, keeping us here in Southern California high and dry. We've had just a couple of rain days, and all you need is a couple of days after that with these types of conditions to dry out any moisture that was left in these plants and the vegetation down below. And the National Weather Service keeps track of that. They look at fuel moisture. They detect how much moisture is in the chaparral, in the grasses, and then they look at wind, the most critical factor. And when they look at those 2 elements, they determine if red flag conditions are in effect, and they will issue those warnings. First the fire weather watches, and then upgrading to the red flag warnings. That's what we saw here in Southern California. They knew this was coming, and sure enough, it came to fruition. And these conditions,
or do they just happen upon another home that's on fire and then try to save that structure there?
Most of the calls are organized. What we did hear a lot of calls this morning, Bob, were calls to help people evacuate, folks who had not gotten out in time and now were faced with a dangerous situation and could not get out on their own. So you have first responders from police officers to firefighters now helping them to evacuate and to get out. There is a plan. There is a method. Most of the firefighters are assigned to certain areas. They've got their priorities of areas that they need to hit. The concern a little while ago is that this fire was doubling back towards Santa Paula, towards the 33, where it had already been. That's why we're telling folks, even though the fire may have burned through your area, please stay tuned. Please keep monitoring social media, Fox LA. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. And anytime any of those agencies tweet out something or put out something you need to know, we will also be putting it out. So you will be well informed if you stay tuned. And please do be informed, because this fire is just